Hello. My name is. Sorry, small problems. My name is Goran Mekic, and you're watching Tilda podcast. Topic is generally FreeBSD, and we're starting with one of my favorite packages. It's called CBSD, and the other one I'm author of is called Reggae, and I'm gonna show you how it all works together with PF and ZFS. Why I told you before about the technologies that I did. But first, I kinda forgot to mention one cool thingy about the PF. Give me just a sec. Okay, now it should be stereo. I mean, sorry, my audio is acting up. Um, what I wanted to show you is that um, there's statistics that you probably want to see in your firewall from time to time. What's going on? And the wow, what the hell? Seriously? Okay, I don't know. Gremlins, and this is really old machine, so anything is possible. And you can see a rules translation and states and whatnot. But sometimes you're more, I don't know if it's gonna work as a user. Of course not. Um, Sometimes you want to just see the um, connection. Well, states it's called, but every connection is basically a state, but not quite. So PF top is really handy, and for now, try O as a letter, and you're gonna see here order that changes, and you probably want to find who is okay bytes, right, who is using all the internet and on my machine. And this can come in handy because for one, this IP address doesn't have to be your machine. With jails and beehive, it can be basically some other resource that has IP address. Wow, this is vague. Some other resource. I mean, either it's jail or virtual machine having an IP address, and you can see who is well sucking your pipe internet one. Uh, I mean, it can do more than that, but as I said, I want to scratch the surface and I want to show you how most common tasks are done, and seeing your connections or states is really one of them. Like day-to-day task, seeing what's going on the server or my machine or whatever. I mean, it doesn't have to be really everyday job, but I mean task. And I wanted to show you that this here is the actual file called device file that uh, pf top, pf control, and other user space programs are talking to. And you can see here the permissions, which means that first is character device. Then we have three, hmm, how to say, spaces. One is read, write, and execute. Uh, you can see that you can read and write to a device file, but normally you cannot execute it. And there is three for the group. So these were for the user, which is root. These three are for the group, and these three are for anything but these two. So it's called other, and it is come in handy. So if it's dash, it's not set. If it's a letter, then it's gonna tell you what permission there is. And this doesn't have to be like this. And as a matter of fact, Reggae is abusing that uh, in a very special way to inform PF of the changes. I'm going to talk about it later, but that's one of the interesting, uh, how to say, user space facing aspect of PF. Um, I mean, if we're talking about kernel and user space, right? This is user facing, and there's uh, there is one more thing called pflog that we're gonna talk about how to enable all this and how do you get to the setup. But pflog is what gives you real time, somewhat statistics, well, log of a PF. And when I say that, I mean statements that specifically have log in them are gonna be in there. But how do you get it out, right? Uh, Now, I'm not gonna bore you too much with how to actually do networking and sniffing and other stuff, but there is one really nifty command. It's called, I will probably need to do this. It's called TCP dump, and TCP dump is basically um, what is used when you want to analyze the packages from the used from the command line, and you can analyze what's going on the interface. And pflog is just one um, source of information that TCP dump can use. So one cool thing is that it's real time, and now I have no idea how to cause it to spew out the log. But this is what you're using um, when you want to sniff what those block-in log statements do in real time. Now, obviously, this is a machine behind the router, and nobody's attacking me, so I'm not gonna show you how the actual um, line looks like, but it's gonna be here. And TCP dump has quite a few filters you can use. So it's handy to take a look what's going on with your PF in real time. And when you're not doing it in real time, you can use a log file. So maybe you just missed something and you need to look at a log file. No, not that. Sorry. Come on. All right. All right. Somebody was attacking me. But yeah, this is my network and there's something sometimes going on. So this is the format that you're gonna see in either command you issue. So this is just a classical log, so it has a buffer. It's not gonna be right away available, the latest information, but it has a history in it of everything you said you should log as a firewall. But uh, sometimes you just want to see what's going on right away, and well, this is it. It's gonna be in this exact format. So these are two things I wanted to show you about the PF. There is some logging. You can see what's going on, and there is some top like uh, program that can show you your states to be precise, right? So let's jump to what Reggae and CBSD together actually are. And to start, it's like this. So it's gonna tell me I already have that, the latest, probably. Oh, come on. This is such a bad timing. Okay, at least I built all my jails. I hope that's not gonna take time. I want to show you how the other end looks like. I showed you just the intro to the tools that CBSD and Reggae are using. Now I want to show you how it all looks like for the user developer of your own project and so on. So yeah, the most recent version is already there. And what you do to initialize, I obviously done it on this machine, so it's in the history. This is gonna, it's not going to initialize the network the way Reggae likes it. It's gonna write the configuration down, and maybe you're doing it over SSH, so over network, so you might want to um, not automatically cut off internet, right? So the first step, which I'm not gonna run now because I have that config and I'm gonna show you what it does, uh, is just to set up bridge and PF if they're not already set up, so the rest of the infrastructure can use them. Less, how to say, less thing for jails and beehives to do. So this is what it brings. So the full, this is something old, so I don't want it in the screen. And if you just install the FreeBSD, this is the portion that the Reggae and CBSD together are going to initialize. And as you can see, there is going to be one bridge interface which is going to be renamed to CBSD. It's going to be somewhat configured network wise. Uh, I forgot which is which, but one is for VNet enabled jails, one is for non VNet jails, uh, and some PF and NFS for sharing the. Um, if you're working on a code that you want to run in a different operating system under some virtual machine, uh, you're gonna need this. So that's why it uh, configures mount DNFS RPC bind uh, to be able to ping your jails by name. Uh, Unbound is used and it's updated as jails go up and down or beehive or storage and stopped, and some CBSD stuff uh, that is added by Reggae automatically. But if you run CBSD init as one word init uh, yeah, so right, it's gonna do the CBSD portion of this, but it's gonna ask you about uh, what you want, uh, network ZFS wise, and so on. So reggae initialization is somewhat less flexible and assumes a certain amount of environment in order to work. But it's intended for desktops and somewhat servers. So that's kind of okay requirement. It's not gonna be some, I don't know, small machine like embedded. So it's okay to request ZFS. I think. Well, it's already there. Anyway, uh, this is all that is being configured with the following few commands. So first is network init, and second one is CBSD init, and this should be ran every time CBSD or Reggae are updated. The CBSD init env is gonna do this for you also. But if you're using Reggae, it's going to update some jail templates and scales and so on. So some basic startup uh, things that it adds on top of CBSD. And we're gonna see how it's achieved. It's not magic. It's just a few scripts, but let me go over what it takes for. So yeah, now maybe this list makes more sense. Uh, this one. So every item here is either, except this one, obviously, right? So okay, let's be precise. Every item here is either jail or Beehive virtual machine, and it has its home where it stores data, and we're gonna get to that in just a sec. But maybe now ZFS listing makes more sense when you know that CBSD is there and it has something to do with file system. Um, So yeah, and there is uh, right. Master is the jail that is kind of special for CBSD, for Reggae. It's configured in a special way so it has access to PF on the host. And the reason for it is because it has um, DNS running inside of it. And it's this one. So yeah, jail list is written as JLS. And there is also CBSD equivalent, which will tell you running and not running jails, on and off. Uh, this is a FreeBSD built-in command. It comes in base. This is from CBSD, and the why this has more stuff in it is because the way containers work, they are from the operating system perspective, from the kernel perspective, they're temporarily there. There is no persistent jail uh, as a concept in a FreeBSD kernel, or well, any kernel. It's how containers work generally. But there are usually other um, technologies surrounding that container that allows it to store data, of course. Otherwise, it's meaningless if you lose all your, I don't know, backups and databases every time that you restart. I mean, in the case of CBSD and Reggae, that's ZFS, where it stores data with ZFS um, data set. But you're gonna notice that this path is not actually this data, right? Because you see that it's a weird mount point from this perspective. So what you're gonna actually get is when you run mount, you're gonna get even more data. And when I say, come on, give me something that has CBSD in it, you can see that. Come on, give me. All right, here. You can see that there is actually amount that is uh, in the list that represents running jail. And there is ZFS dataset that for now we're gonna say that saves the offline data for, well, offline when the jail is not running. So this is how it connects, basically, how ZFS mounts and jails connect. But let's see what the mount, what jail actually is. So if you give me a sec, I'm gonna. All right, I'm gonna introduce you to what Reggae actually does for the. In this case, for a developer, but you can easily see how you can run basically anything. These services are development oriented, but what basically is going on here is that when you um, run some of these services, they are going to create a jail uh, based on some rules, in this case, Ansible, and they're going to create that jail for you, uh, well, as fast as Ansible allows. and it's gonna be like repeatable how to create that jail. So if you're playing with something, you can just destroy it and recreate it real fast. So while it's in development, you can see that, okay, I took a wrong turn somewhere, I don't know where, just destroy it and create it again. It's easier, right? And I mean, it's not just that. You probably want to share with your team your code, and you don't want them to suffer getting your code running locally. So one side of Reggae is making this what is in modern times called DevOps, uh, making it easier with the concept of project, with which this Frenet is. They say that every uh, talk is shameless, uh, cheap ad for your projects, and this one is no exception because Reggae is a project that I started and Frenet too. Now, luckily, they're not code wise, they're not all mine, they're contributions. But yeah, I'm gonna talk about two best integrated pieces of software projects that I know. I mean, from a Reggae perspective, uh, because this is relatively new, and that's why I'm talking about. I want to introduce this cool, not so new tool, but I haven't talked about it much. So, Freenet is basically a bunch of services that are framework, web development framework. Backend is Python and Flask. Front end is MobX, React, and Material UI. And there are other services like documentation. There is Designer that I'm probably gonna start with because it's the fastest to install. And there's some helper, whatever for now, whatever. But there are different services, and they're going to be here um, based on this GitHub URLs. They're going to be placed here, and they're going to be considered uh, Reggae service. And for example, for Designer, it also has a makefile. And Designer, as Allfrinet, is a kind of special case for now, but I want to make it more universal. So there are mm, saying this brings more integration into Reggae if you're using Freenet based project. And Freenet based projects come with any file that is special in a way that it speaks two languages. So the this is basically because it's used in a makefile. This is a makefile syntax, valid syntax, but also just happens to be a valid uh, I forgot JS syntax. No, sorry, Bash for running scripts. So Makefile and Bash script know uh, how to load this. So if you do something like this, right? The jail is going to be named after this. The um, right the service name is going to be uh, what app name is here. So it's based on uh, one configuration file that multiple languages can import. In this case, too, if it's a backend, for example, it's even weirder because, come on, no, not that one. It should be name. It has app name equals something, and it's a Python file that just accidentally is um, has a common denominator, I think it's called, with makefile syntax, so it can be included here, and that's how you should name your directory or your source directory here. The reason for it is that um, I've been working with some startups, and with startups, you need somewhat of modularity where, mm, let's say, companies don't go. Uh, so if you change the name of your project for whatever reason, I wanted to make it easy for how the jail is named, how the project is named, and how the uh, scripts are going to find your jail and so on. So that that's why the name.py is actually polyglot. Right, it can speak multiple languages, but it's basically telling, okay, this is where my like the base of my operation is. That's how the project service, sorry, is called, and how do you rename it if you need to for any reason. But as naming is the one of the hardest things, uh, I realized that uh, actually telling yourself that you don't know how to name a project up front is sometimes the like how to say the factual state, and you know that it's a high probability that at the beginning of a startup you will rename your project. I made that easier. So it's somewhat of a polyglot, but it's only for Freenet. And specifically, I made it exception for this. But you can see that other frameworks don't necessarily have to have such integration with reggae. It doesn't require that. It's just way easier if it's done that way. And reggae, Freenet backend initialization and frontend is gonna bring that file in anyway, so it's a no-brainer. So when something is nicely integrated as this, then you can say, okay, let me show you. Sorry, let's close all this. You can say, okay, this is the like an initial state, but probably I don't want to work on all services at once. Uh, and I know designer is a pretty self-contained. It doesn't require any other um, service to run. So you can say, okay, for now, forget this line. I'm going to get back to it. You can override it and say, okay, just empty the services and just use designer for start designer service. Uh, Designer is basically a drag and drop. Um, well, no wonder design tool uh, for the front end that knows how to spew out, export uh, code that is well, not usable right away, but if you give it to uh, React developer, it's gonna be much happier than if you give him I don't know, Photoshop file or JPEG or whatever. So this is one side of nice project integrating with the CBSD and Reggae. So just to run that one, uh, use a syntax like this. I could use this as a one-liner, but sometimes you need multiple services, and this is neat. You can just add them as one-liners, and I don't know. I find it a cool way to organize my file. This wars.mk is going to be ignored by default, so you can go crazy in here to a degree. So this is what Reggae will search for, and if wars.mk exists, is gonna import it. So the devil mode um, is gonna tell services like designer through a project.mk, which is also in per service gitignore file, what project level variables are. And one of them is devil mode. Devil mode. All right, we're on FreeBSD. And what it brings is that this whole designer directory is going to be accessible from jail on /user/src. So let's see. If I type make, is it gonna ask for pseudo password? I created this jail for designer previously, so we're just watching it how it boots. And if you're looking at the network, you can see that it gets network through DHCP/CD. The reason is that it has IPv6 support, capsicumized, really nice software that is actually needed one day when I get to implement the IPv6 support or get a contribution, which is even better. Thank you. But it can use built-in DH client. It's just if I do it this way, I know I'm not doing anything to stop me from implementing IPv6. So for Reggae jails, like designer, the DHCP/CD is going to be used unless you tell it not to be used, which is an option. So that's what's going on. It got address, it booted something, the storage like cron SSH, and um, if you boot it, if you create jail and store it for the first time, first CBSD is going to do some initialization that it needs. Then Reggae is going to provision your jail with, for example, Ansible, but I wrote support for Ansible, Shell, Chef, SoulStack, Puppet, and I think that's it. But I'm mostly using Ansible and Shell, so I know those are really good. Those have really good support. But I don't know if you tell me about a bug. in other provisioners, I will be more than happy to fix it if I know how to. But yeah, the idea was not to limit you in any way how you're going to do your provisioning, uh, or configuration of a jail. You use either provisioning tool that you like or none. That's also an option. So it installs and configures your system as Ansible tells it in this example. And I'm not gonna show you Ansible right away. I'm gonna show you what happens when you go to devil mode. And for front end developers, this is basically all they need. The URL to the, hey, what have I done with my front end, right? Show me in the browser. And this is actually an address of a jail. So if I use something like this, how do I, sorry, if I use something like this, ah, Benedict Reuschling. He has some history in this reggae. I listened to his advice to uh, I had an idea for reggae and told him, and he told me, well, why don't you write it down? Maybe somebody finds it attractive, right? And starts contributing, and maybe that's a really cool project. So why not? And so, few years later, here we are, um, using reggae for my projects and integrating stuff and doing some research. No, I wanted something else to show you. Doing some research based uh, on basically the FreeBSD and CBSD, because I tend to run everything in jail if I can. It's just really neat and easy to clean up. Uh, if you use it for tests, for research, messing around, right? It's a really neat way to say, okay, I don't need this. Just everything I used in this project, just move it away. Really nice. Anyway, you can see that this is the actual address that is going to be presented to you. So this is you can access this address from your machine, and that's why unbound is used. So when jail requests an address through DHCP it is also registered in a DNS, and FreeBSD comes with a service called local unbound, right? So whatever, restart, stop, what you need. And that special jail I mentioned earlier, this CBSD, knows how to update the unbound on host, and this is where DHCP server is running, yet it knows how to um, access hosts unbound, so it can configure it as stuff gets started and stopped. Um, so yeah, this is something that is well, no, this is something that is accessible on your network now. And what does it actually mean? That Oh yeah, you can also log into. Okay, let's start easy. You can also log into a service. Eh, or not. Uh, oh, it's designer. Right, so you can also log into a service. You don't have to know the address. Also, it does run um, SSH, and it's going to provide a provision user that is going to have your key in it. So if you initialized it, if you created it, you will be able to log into it over SSH as a user provision. So let's actually try that. Come on. No. What? Gone already? Okay, I'm gonna type it. So SSH provision at Frenet designer my machine. Well, I didn't log in. Okay. So same thing. It's gonna provide you with sudo. So now you're doing basically same thing as this. Well, no, this is using login, JLogin without SSH running. But if you're using it on a network, you can use your host as a jump machine for the jail. So you have also SSH. Maybe it's convenient. And I mean, having SSH, I don't want to say it has zero attack service like security, but it's one of the most secure ways to access your uh, jail server, whatever. So having it running always, it's not a big deal from security perspective, right? And you can log in from the project. You can even say, okay, okay, give me user that is meant to do development inside this, because devil mode is going to create this user and is gonna have a special user ID and group ID, which are actually my credentials here. So if I type ID here, these numbers are going to match, right, for UID and GID. So if I log in as double, it's also 1001. The reason is so you can access your source and also uh, see it as your own files, although what you're actually seeing is this. So you can see the resemblance. I'm not listing dot files here, but yeah, the rest you can see the resemblance. So I'm sharing this directory with this jail. So if you log in there, sorry, you can also log in from the service directly. So this service in the service has no meaning, and we're going to remove it. And also use user devil. Hello, Benedict. And right, the same stuff happens. Uh, Now this is for development's sake, or if you're playing in jail and want to, I don't know, maybe you have configuration that you need to save in a host, so you can copy it to user source uh, and destroy the jail, basically. I don't know, maybe it's an artifact of testing or whatever, but yeah, there's some stuff that you can save on host that are being shared with jails. And in case of CBSD jail, like the master jail, it has mm, special treatment because it kind of controls uh, things around. I'm not gonna talk about that now. It's quite a huge topic, but let's see what we mean when we say jail. It's almost like a virtual machine. And when I say almost, I mean VNet jails kind of behave nicely. If you SSH into something like this called the VNet enabled jail, um, managed by CBSD, you're going to get uh, this interface, and you're going to see this IP address as your own, right? Why is that strange? Because this is not a virtual machine, and having DHCP inside a container is um, not something that, for example, Linux containers are used to or able to achieve. It's something, VNet stands for virtual network. It's based on technology that is called virtual image. It's a virtualization framework inside the FreeBSD kernel. Um, Solaris has Crossbow that is, I heard it's even more advanced than VNet, but the base principles are the same. That you provide to the user more of a not special case, right? Because if you have to do something on the host and something else in jail, it doesn't really look like that operating system, right? You're going to manage it differently, and every exception actually makes the problem twice worse because now you have to think about the two problems, right? With and without the right. Am I jailed or not? And having a feeling at home while being in jail, no matter how bizarre that sounds, is what we actually want. Uh, well, in FreeBSD, and like stuff like DHCP running. Well, obviously, not as this user, but if I list it as root, DHCP running normal SSH. There is a network called ETH0. Uh, I don't think I can ping something. Like that. Oh, I can. Okay, cool. I can because I told you that at the beginning that PF doesn't have to run to be configured. This dev PF doesn't have to be configured the same way um, inside a jail and outside. And one thing also that this is not perfect. This is not really great for to have BPF uh, running inside a jail, but eh, because these are the raw packages that PF needs to operate. either on host or on inside a jail. But arguably, you can say that it can pose security risk. But if somebody has exclusively root access to this, then you have bigger problems. But yeah, this is what is needed for VNet jail and ping to work. Ping doesn't usually work inside a jail, so this is, well, raw sockets are not um permitted inside a jail, so Reggae permits them, and it's just more, oops, sorry, more of a feeling at home, like ping works, if config works, the way expect it to. Like from the experience on the host, you expect this to work the same. So yeah, uh, outside of, now you see that user devil is the owner of this, but cool thing is that if I list it, I'm actually owner on the host when I go outside of jail. Right, this is really easily achievable in jails, CBSD and Reggae, and that's one of the uh, two problems that I really had with Docker. One is, okay, can I share my files so root doesn't have to run it, but some other user that has just the same UID and GID? And at the time, it was, hmm, I'm talking 2014 and around that time. So a lot of years has passed, but that was my experience, and I wanted to build into a reggae easy mechanism to basically do even your development as non-root, because you want to run it in production as non-root. So why not develop as one? And this is a neat uh, way to work. And second one is, coming from Docker background, I found it odd that Docker containers themselves can use names, but I can't. When I want to ping something like, sorry, it, okay, like this. Huh, not great. Oh yeah, this is too much. Well, I want to ping something like this, which I gathered through, well, not uh, here, right? It displays the whole string. So I can pretend it's just another host. Uh, and that's really neat. Just another network resource I can access, and that's cool. So I hope I gave you a preview why jails, why ZFS, why all this ecosystem that I showed you. Uh, why is it the way it is, and how it's all connected from a very high above the ground eye of a bird perspective, but that kind of have a feeling of a direction that this course is going to take. It's going to be based a lot on jails um, and CBSD and Reggae. So I hope I gave you a preview what that means somewhat more technologically. The reason I started from the beginning, then Now I told you how it all, well, it kind of ends up on if you want to call reggae the end, right? The beginning and end is because the integration is hard part, and it's usually in the middle. So I left the hard stuff for later. I'm gonna talk about how it all integrates. Just I wanted to cover um, easier aspects first, hoping not to lose you along the way. Anyway, this is all for today. I'm not gonna take any more of your time. I know this is a lot to take in, so I'm going to iterate over stuff like this. You can see that we're going to go back to ZFS, where is what, how to peek into files and network and what's going on, and how PF even integrates into that. So that's going to be a topic for later. And for the next week, I want to show you how do you um, how do you create your own service and your own uh, project. So it can be as simple as Hello World, but how do you create your own? Because that's the point. Thank you for watching.